Do you love made-for-TV movies? We sure do. We always have. In 30 years of friendship, we've laughed, cried, diagnosed, and obsessed over every made-for-TV movie we could get our eyes on.
Did you know that most made-for-TV movies are about amazing people who have risked their lives to change the world?
We'll be taking you through the last 60 years of some of the most powerful stories. We'll see what's changed and what's exactly the same.
We also love a nice synthesizer and a sweet satin blouse. And we think you will too.
I'm Steph.
I'm Liz.
And this is
No One Would Tell, Except Us podcast.
Well, hello, everyone. I hope that you're having a great day. Hope you're gearing up for the weekend. If you're about to celebrate a birthday, happy birthday. If you're about to celebrate another holiday, I hope you're vibing with it because we don't know when you're going to listen to this, but we're happy you're here.
Me too.
I'm Stephanie Nicole Permatti.
I'm Elizabeth Kendra Enos.
Those are our real names.
Yes.
You can't make those up.
You can't make those up.
And this is our podcast, and we're so excited to have you with us. Before we get started, we just wanted to give a little bit of a disclaimer. We have a lot of thoughts, but we are not professionals when it comes to any kind of domestic violence or harassment, sexual harassment. So we just want everybody to keep themselves safe and comfortable. So some of the content from the movie we're going to be talking about has some of those themes, and we just want everyone to take care of themselves. And I think something that really tipped us off that this is what we're supposed to be doing is that there's a lot of these made-for-TV movies that I haven't even seen and that Liz hasn't even seen, but the other one did. So basically, through text messages and pictures and video clips, I feel like I've seen everything Liz has ever seen.
It's very true.
So we just
very graphic.
We have a really deep well of knowledge for all of this kind of content, and we want to share it.
Yeah.
First, I just want to give a shout out to Mrs. Ironman, Liz's mom.
Hey, Mom.
I spent many formative years on this woman's couch, and when we were deciding the first episode movie, we could not find this movie anywhere.
No.
And Mrs. Ironman found it
On the Internet Archives.
She's
It's literally a website for that.
What is it? Go
It's
ahead.
Internet Archives.
She's going to get it done.
She knows how to find Trader Joe's high fiber cereal and this movie like
right.
no one's business.
That's right. If I ever go missing, I want that woman put on the case to find me.
She would do well.
Yeah. So our first movie that we are going to dive into is Cries Unheard, the Tracey Thurman story. And I can remember personally being really, really young and seeing this on network TV.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And being really affected by it and not really believing what I saw. And I just want to put out there that no adults in my life said I should watch this movie, but I did. And then it was maybe like 20 years later, I saw it on Lifetime. And I was like, wow, this is exactly how I remember it being. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this.
And it was put out, I think, in 1989.
Yes.
So that would put me at like 6 and you, what, at 5?
Right.
It's a good movie.
That's about right. So some of the reasons we decided to go with this movie is, you know, it's been about 40 years and these kind of stories still happen all the time, all over the country, all over the world. And there's still kind of a gap in police support for various reasons. But it's really serious and really dangerous, and it affects entire communities. This particular story focuses on kind of a landmark lawsuit, which is Thurman versus Torrington. And that lawsuit helped spread awareness about police response in domestic violence situations.
In Torrington, Connecticut. So this doesn't apply to all of the U.S., just Torrington.
That's right. And what we were saying, I've never even been to Connecticut. I don't know if you have. So I always think of Connecticut as sprawling meadows and mansions and fountains. Martha Stewart, butlers,
Richie.
Some kind of nice cars.
Yes.
But you'll learn from this movie that there's plenty of bowling alleys and motels.
Oh, man, yeah.
There's a lot going on.
A lot going on in Connecticut.
Not cute.
Not cute.
So also, this movie kind of tells the story of how Tracey goes through with this lawsuit. And at the time, she's awarded the most damages ever for a case like this against a police department. And in the movie, it says $2.3 million. But in reality, she got $1.9 million, which is like shitty.
Yeah.
And then we realized that that's like $5.5 million today.
Which is not very much.
It's not a lot for what she had to go through.
Yeah.
So this movie stars Nancy McKeon, which...
Facts of life.
Shout out. Great job. And
excellent.
I only knew her as Michael J. Fox's lady friend.
Oh, really? They dated?
Well, in the show. Really preppy, really cute.
Yeah, she was cute.
And so I'm sure her agent was like, look, I've got a juicy script. And it's not like Family Ties.
Yeah, she sold it. I mean, she really was amazing in this role.
She was. And I liked that she kind of the entire time did not fall apart.
No.
And I also liked that she had a very real vulnerability.
Yeah, definitely.
And sort of just like a blank, almost like hopelessness in terms of not knowing what to do.
Yes.
But still somehow like getting out of bed every day.
She definitely came from a home that seemed like her mother was very strong. And, you know, they have a great foreshadow scene before Tracey's really involved with Buck, which is the man that abuses her. And I think her mom was ill. And in the movie, they put her in some terrible looking like nursing home, which I don't know if that was real life, but my goodness, she was really young to be there.
Yeah.
And she was just like, you know, you gotta, what did she say? She says, you're a brave girl, Tracey. You just don't know it yet. And, you know, she continuously, Tracey talks in the movie about how her mom would never like let her put up with what she's going through. So, you know, she did come from a strong home, which is interesting.
It is really interesting because a lot of times in these movies, and again, let's remember, these are based on real stories.
Right.
So it's actual women telling their daughters a lot of the time that they should stick it out, that they're not going to find another man, that it's private business.
Right.
And Tracey's mom wasn't like that. But then it also goes to show that, like, it kind of doesn't matter, which is kind of sad. But
yeah,
it was good to see that angle. That's not usually the case in these kinds of movies.
Tracey did use that strength and that, you know, because she did fight back.
Right.
You know, and she did win.
Right.
In a way.
Yeah.
You know? So that's important to note.
Yeah. She definitely like stood up for herself at a time when like
everyone was against her.
Yeah. The movie opens and it's sort of like Tracey is working at a motel. She's cleaning rooms.
In Florida.
In Florida, that's right.
Yeah.
And she meets Butch, or is it Buck?
It's Buck.
Okay, she's cleaning rooms in Florida. She meets Buck.
Charles Buck.
Let's talk about the casting with him really quick. So that was Dale Midkiff.
Hats off.
And I have to say, I mean, a lot of times in these kind of movies, you see the husband, you're like, he's terrifying. Something horrible is going to happen.
Yes.
He's repulsive. Not the case.
No.
Not the case.
Pretty good looking.
Kind of cute.
Yeah.
And, you know something bad's going to happen because, like, the first 10 seconds of the movie has that music. But he doesn't come across as somebody who's predatory. And he doesn't come across as somebody that's threatening.
I mean, he is, though, playing a game of poker during the workday at a seedy motel.
That's right.
And then he kind of comes out to her little laundry cart and starts pushing her back, being like, who are you? Want to hang out? So, I mean, sure.
Yeah.
He's all right.
I mean, it's not necessarily somebody we would go for.
No.
But in that situation in Florida, cleaning rooms 40 years ago, who knows?
Who knows? Maybe that was just the way you got picked up.
And that could have been the most promising suitor she had ever seen come through that motel.
Men to that, because that motel was dicey.
So the film is like really filmic in terms of how it looks. All the shots are really well composed.
Yeah.
There's definitely a tone. And it's like really well done. And this director hadn't done much in terms of made for TV movies.
Oh.
So I'm definitely going to keep digging into, why he chose to make this film.
Yeah.
Because it really is beautifully done. And it does hold up in terms of like some of the effects and being 40 years old.
Oh, yeah.
Like it stands the test of time.
It does.
Yeah.
It's not hokey.
No.
At all. It was very well done.
So they meet and, they go on a date that's in one of the motel rooms, right? Like a poker date. Like he's playing poker with the...
See, I think yes, you're right. Because I was like, they pretty much have sex like immediately.
They do.
But you're right. They do go to like a game with his friends and she's just kind of like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Right.
Gross. They've been there all day.
Yeah. I mean, she's like his arm candy, but she's in a collared shirt.
I mean, isn't she still in her uniform?
Oh, is she? With the apron?
I'm pretty sure.
I think so.
Yeah.
So, then they hook up. And like one thing I know I told you really bothered me is that they're both wearing long sleeve collared shirts when they hook up. And I know this was probably network TV.
Right.
They're not going to show TNA. But like, I'm sorry. Nobody's hooking up in collared button down shirts.
Especially in Florida. Can you imagine how hot it is?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, gross.
That lost me a little bit.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, like maybe her agent was like, we're not even showing clavicle. I don't know.
I don't know.
Like, what's the deal with him?
Yeah.
Because he wears some short shorts.
Yeah.
A little too modest for my taste when I'm watching a hookup scene.
It's not believable. It's probably very hot. Like, if you cleaned rooms all day, are you just like, yeah, I want to go have sex right now?
No.
Like, could you imagine what you found at that hotel?
Or motel? No.
Yeah.
Horrendous.
Like, oh, yeah. It's like, don't you have to clean that room when you're done, Tracey?
Right.
Like, ew.
And like, it seems like all those construction workers are living in those rooms for the near future.
Well, I mean, that's where she lives with her child later.
That's right.
It's like, yeah, that's intense.
And like, yeah, no offense, but I'm going to say if something is like maybe not great in terms of a motel, if you're going to put that in Florida, that probably gets multiplied by like 50.
Yes. And also like, when you work somewhere like at a restaurant and like it's gross.
Yeah.
You don't go and eat there.
No.
Like when your time is up, you don't bring your like lover there.
No.
You go somewhere else.
And then I think the first sort of red flag, besides the situation that they're in the first place, is when he yells at her after a poker game or during a poker game because like he doesn't have money.
Right.
And she is like, yeah, we don't have any more money.
Right. You gambled it all away.
Right.
Basically. Like you keep losing.
Right.
And then he loses it.
Yeah.
Because he's embarrassed. He feels like emasculated.
Right.
And it's just like, time's up, Tracey. Time to get mollywopped.
That's right. That's right. That's the word of the day.
That's the word of the day.
So he screams in her face and, that's the pivotal moment because she tries to comfort him instead of walking her ass away.
Right.
And that is the first time she is basically allowing him to abuse her.
Right.
And by then she's in deep. I mean, again, he's not bad looking. Like I'm not judging. Like
no, he's not.
And she's alone, and like we see from like her family relationships, there's a lot of like judgment later on.
Yes, her sister is terrible.
Yeah, her sister's
just very harsh. And to be honest with you, being young and in that kind of vulnerable state, I think I would have done the same. Like, I don't think I would have. I think I'd be like, I can change him. Or it was just a bad night. I said something stupid. I shouldn't have made him feel bad in front of his friends.
Right.
Instead of being like, yeah, maybe I hurt your feelings, but you can't just like scream in my face.
Right.
But that takes a lot. That takes wisdom.
And honestly, it's like that whole idea too, where it's like, oh, well, he just hasn't had someone like me.
Right.
And now that he does, like, I can teach him.
Right. I can change him.
Right.
Which is like a theme I think a lot of women fall into.
And I think too, like, until you really figure out like your value and like your self-love and like what you're worth, I think it's like very difficult to assert yourself.
Yes.
And she's very young in this film.
Yes.
So
Probably like what, early 20s maybe?
I think so.
She's a
I
baby.
think she's probably like maybe even like 20.
Yeah, that's so young.
It's so young.
Yeah. She's making dinner and they're making a note that like she's getting nauseous. So you kind of know in your head, you're like, okay, she's definitely pregnant. And she's like, really, she's got candles. She's making it super romantic. You know, she's probably really excited.
She's using that kitchenette.
She
using
really
that
is.
kitchenette.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing. And he comes in and he's like, oh my gosh, this is great, you know? And they sit down and I think they're holding hands and you're like, oh, this is charming. And maybe a few bites in, she kind of is just like, I'm pregnant. And I kid you not even a pause. He just slaps the shit out of her. I mean,
It's
like, bad.
It's bad.
Like, not even a what? Are you sure? I mean, not that validates it,
Right.
but it's just like, there's no
Instinct.
talking.
Instinct.
Yeah, he just reacts.
Yeah.
And hits her super hard.
Yeah.
And then I think he leaves.
Yeah,
Thank
I think
goodness.
he does leave and probably goes to another motel room to play poker. And, you know, again, it's like that's one of those moments. And I always like caution people to judge because people are always like, I would have been out of there. And the truth is, like, you don't know what you would have done.
No.
You don't know, especially in those circumstances, especially expecting a baby.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
You have no idea what you would do. And she feels that she doesn't really have anywhere to turn.
Yeah. I mean, she's like 20, 21. It's her first time, from what we know, that she's pregnant. Her mom is gone. She doesn't even live in her home state. She's not near family. She's not near her one friend that later comes into play.
Right.
Bungalow. They never use the front door. It drove me out of my mind.
Which, by the way, like, side note, I was like, is this the Permati residence from 1988? Because we had steps like that. We had a deck and then steps, like, going straight down.
Oh.
It brought me back.
Yeah.
It really brought me back.
Yeah.
But yeah, she can't go to that house. It's in a different state.
It's in a different, I mean, it's far. It's not like, oh, it's in Georgia or something like
Yeah.
that. Like, this is a trip. And, you know, she spent all this time. I mean, she's stunned. She should be. I would be stunned. I don't even know what I would do.
No.
Like, that would be so surprising. Because he just slaps her and leaves.
I don't really know what he was thinking. I mean, obviously, we're not in the bedroom with them, but like, I'm assuming they weren't using protection. So for him to like flip is really telling about his mental state.
Right.
And also, I think we talked earlier about how in a lot of these movies, there's like two camps of husbands. And one camp is like, you're having as many kids as I say, even if you don't want them anymore. And then one camp is like, you're never having a kid.
Right.
And that's also associated with violence oftentimes.
Yeah.
So that was rough,
Yeah.
but she stays.
Yeah. I mean, where's she going to go?
Right.
To her unsupportive sister?
Right.
Her other friend in Connecticut, I believe she's already pregnant. She's further along. She has the baby first.
Right.
So it's like, well, what am I going to do? Go like over to her. She's got a baby on the way. She's married. She's happy. I would be embarrassed too.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I hooked up with this guy. I'm pregnant. I'm excited about it. I told him, he slapped me.
Right.
It's like, what? But I know that he eventually comes back and she's cooking breakfast and you can tell she's like very disheveled and obviously and very hurt and not saying anything to him. And he is just like, you know what? I am excited about this baby. It's like, oh, well, I'm so glad that after you freaking hit me in the face while I'm pregnant with your child, now you're excited.
That's right. He came around.
He came around. What a charmer.
So, yeah. And then she's like, okay, let me go, clean some more rooms or whatever.
But see, I thought she went off. This is when she goes off to Connecticut. I thought she does leave, like, immediately. He, like, because she's silent and he goes to work. And then she's just like, you know what? See, this is when her strength comes in. So her strength comes in and she's like, you know what? I am going to go to Connecticut. I will just stay with my friend because maybe, I don't know, maybe she was still deciding at that point, do I keep this baby? Do I not? Do I stay with this guy? Do I not? So she does drive to Connecticut while her friend is kind of super pregnant. Like, I remember that. Right? Am I remembering this correctly?
Yeah. And I can't think of who plays her friend, but she's lovely. I mean, she's really like the friend everyone would want, I guess, in this kind
In
of
some ways.
situation.
Although at the wedding, I was like, how can you support this? But
Right. So
she-
that's like a 1,200-mile drive.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a long drive.
Yeah.
So she goes there. Her friend is like married to a very nice guy, it seems like.
So benign and nice.
Yeah.
So
And they're
benign.
just like, you're going to stay here. Like, it's okay. Everything's going to be fine. She also sees her sister. This is where we're introduced to her sister.
Right.
And her sister is just like, well, at least you didn't get knocked up. And she's like, yeah, I did.
Right.
I was like, mic drops. But does her sister go, you can come stay with me? Oh my gosh, this is my niece or nephew. No. We don't see her again after this.
No.
Well, until later when she's like in the hospital.
Yeah, I would have liked to know more about the sister just because they came from like the same mom.
Yeah.
And all we really see is like the sister dressed in like JCPenney vest. We don't know anything about her, but
Yes.
she's like a snob and a half
Yes.
and very judgmental.
She's definitely the Connecticut you think of.
Correct.
Yeah.
So then he comes up there, right?
Yeah, so he follows her, and this, got me so mad. So they have this like bungalow. Her friend that she's staying with has this like really pretty bungalow, and there's like a beautiful front entrance. But yet the entire film, they use this like, I don't know, 2-story like wooden staircase that goes up to like the back door, which leads into their kitchen.
That's right.
So she's in the kitchen. Okay. No one's locking their doors.
No one is. It's completely exposed.
Everything's fine. So she's in there. She's making like a box cake mix or something. And her like friend is there. And they're just like, he just walks right in.
Yeah.
First of all, how did he find out where her like friend lives? I mean, I guess maybe she gave him that information, but that kind of confused me. Like, are you just going around Torrington being like, Tracey, where are you?
Like before maps, like how are you?
How are you
finding
finding this? Yeah, or like any sort of like internet to be like, okay, on Facebook, Tracy's friends, you know, like he just randomly drives. The guy can't like work or play poker, but he definitely knows how to find Tracy in Connecticut.
Yeah. Well, he's a hunter.
Yeah.
You know,
so he's like in there and he's just like, hey, like comes walking in. Now, okay, if I was her friend and this guy came in, would you just be like, I'll leave you two alone in the kitchen?
No. But to be fair, I don't know what I would do because there's the whole thing that's like, what if like your friend never talks to you again because you go against her relationship? Like I could see her friend like freezing up.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I would. But I don't think I would necessarily be like, get the hell out of my house. Because
I would. I'd be like, take your shoes off. I just cleaned the floors. Like
You
that is
definitely would.
Yeah, that's like a
You
rule
definitely
for
would.
me. Like I can't stand that.
I think I would not. I mean, I hope I would know what to do, but I could see myself freezing up.
I mean, that is pretty alarming. You have two, like one very pregnant, one beaten, newly pregnant women in a kitchen making Betty Crocker mix. And this like large guy comes in. I mean, I don't know, maybe I would hope I would call the police, but as we find out, the police in that town are friggin' useless.
I mean,
they're
beyond.
Yeah, they're really on their own.
Yeah.
But that was kind of a weird scene for me. Like, I'm like, would that really be real life? I don't know. Maybe it would. I don't know.
I mean, and also we don't know what actually happened, but if it's in the movie, that probably is pretty close to what happened.
So basically, he's like, baby, I love you. Like, I really do want the baby. And Tracy's kind of, she's kind of sticking it to him. She's like not saying anything. And she's just like, I don't know, you know, like you hit me, you friggin' mollywopped me in the face.
Right.
And like, I just told you I was pregnant. Like, you've screamed at me. You can kind of see the wheels are turning.
Right.
You can tell. I think she didn't want to go back to him. Like, she was like kind of set. And then he was like, I'm not going to ever do that again. Like, I'm going to get a job. Like, what would it take for you to stay with me?
Right.
And he goes, I'll get a job in Connecticut. Like, we can live here with your family, with your friend, like whatever it is. But like, I will do whatever it takes to show you that I love you. And I think that is just so like, that's domestic violence to a T. It's like you apologize, you promise. The person is just like, okay, they must really love me if they're willing to like uproot their life from Florida. And
He's leaving a lot behind.
yeah, those poker guys. I mean, that's like besties. And he's willing to come to Connecticut and find a construction job and like start over. And so she's like, okay, fine. Like, let's do this. All right. And they get married.
Right.
Like pretty much it's like immediate after that they're getting married.
Yeah.
And that part, like, that was really hard to watch too. Cause like her friends are like, oh my gosh, yay.
Right.
And I don't think that would be me. Like, I think I'd be the one in the corner with like a stern face, like being like, you touch her again.
Yeah.
Like, does anyone, object? I'd be like, yeah, I object. Like, don't hit her ever again.
Right.
Or there's going to be problems.
Yeah. There's like an outpouring of support during that wedding that's very off-putting. But again, and it's like true in some circumstances these days. And I think it was more prevalent 40 years ago. But it's like a lot of people are like, a horrible father is better than no father at all.
Yeah.
And I don't agree. And, there's studies now that say, like, no, actually, a child really just needs one stable parent day after day.
Well, yeah.
But that's not happening in 1989.
No. And again, attests to Tracey's true feelings and strength when she looks away after kissing him. When they say husband and wife, you can tell, is like, oh, no. What did I just do?
Yeah.
Like, oh no.
Yeah.
Like regret. And they pretty much speed up from there to a year later, where the baby is born. And it's not a year later. It's a couple months later, I would say.
Right.
The baby's born. They're living with the friend in Connecticut, which, like, oh my gosh, that's such a generous friend.
So generous. And can we just give a quick shout out to the newborn baby that they cast?
Oh, yeah.
In this movie?
Yes.
Because we've all seen like the 4 or 5 or 6-month-old baby that they hand
10-month-old
you
baby
in a blanket. And you're supposed to believe it came out of
the kid is like, in so many movies, the kid is practically eating like hot dogs. Like, it has a full set of teeth and it's about 2 feet tall. And you're like, oh, that's a newborn?
Yeah. They're basically handing you a miniature Adam Sandler. I mean, it's like not believable. And they got a pretty good newborn.
Which kind of like also brings up like, what were child labor laws in the 80s like? Because that's kind of... Is that done still? Are there newborns in films?
Well, it's usually something where it's like you have to have twins, like, because you have to be able to switch them out.
Right.
But I mean, some made-for-TV movies, you could tell they just use different babies. Like, one will have black curly hair and the next one will be bald. Like, and it's just like what they have to do. These budgets are slim. But this was like a legit newborn. Yeah. So kudos.
Yeah, that was nice to see.
It was nice. I believed she pushed that baby out.
Yeah. Not the 18-pounder.
Right. So, yes, living with their friends. Really generous.
Very.
I mean, husband of her friend is, I don't know anything about him, but he's a good man.
Yeah. Blessings to him. And then Buck comes in and surprise, surprise, there's no construction jobs in the entire state of Connecticut.
And it's her fault.
You took me away, Tracey. You had that damn baby, which I didn't want. And now we're stuck here. I can't do this. I've got a job waiting for me in Florida. I mean, they kept that job for him.
I would believe more so that he was getting work as like a male model than that construction company keeping a job for him.
Yeah, we're going to hold this for you, Buck.
Right.
Yeah. So I guess it's off to Florida we go.
It's back to Florida.
And that's awful because now she's away from really her only stability.
Right.
And so now they kind of speed up to, I think the child might be around like a year and a half, maybe.
Yeah.
And
the child's constantly crying, by the way.
Oh my
constantly
gosh.
Crying.
The yelling in that film was intense.
Yes.
There's no talking at one point. It's just screaming. And this little guy, this poor little boy, CJ, who's playing the son, he's got to be like maybe 18 months old, 2 years old. He is, you can tell, not acting. He is petrified because Tracey and Buck are just, I mean, the actors, they are just screaming at each other.
Yep.
And this kid is just in it. And I'm like, how is this possible? Could I being his mom? I'd be like, we're done.
Yeah.
Like, we're done here.
Yeah.
Get a prop. Like, that is so, that really wow, that stood out to me.
It was rough. I mean, you wonder if his parents were like Tracey and Buck. You really don't know. And it was constant, like reactionary crying through the whole movie. While he's like, a baby and a toddler.
Yeah. So they're they're living at the motel again because evidently there's no apartments.
There's nothing
There's
else.
nothing but the motel.
Nothing but the motel.
It's motel or bust. And he's like, I need money because I'm playing poker. And she's like, we don't have any. Right. I mean, she's feeding her 18-month-old like a bucket of KFC chicken. Like, it's dire times.
Big strips. Like,
yes, choking hazard. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So he's just like, give me the money. And she's like, I don't have any. And then like, he's just like, you're a whore, you're a whore, you're a whore. And the kid's like, ah!
Yeah.
And everyone's cool with it.
Yeah.
Like the nearby neighbors. And finally, she gives him probably the only money she has. Probably that was money. I thought in my brain, that's probably money she's been putting aside to try to escape. Because I do feel like throughout the film, like she is a fighter. She just doesn't know how.
Yeah. It's like she almost just doesn't know like what to do with herself if she's not with him.
Right.
Like she knows it's like not right, but it's like she doesn't know what she would do.
Right.
So it's actually really hard to watch because she's not like crying all the time and she's not like, suicidal and she's not like...
he's a good man.
Right. But it's like she just does. And actually, I think her sort of inability to kind of visualize anything else is pretty realistic. Like, I think that's a pretty gripping part.
Man. When you're in it, especially, as a new-time mom and you've got like a toddler and you're stressed, to have that on top of it and be like 21, 22, I can't even imagine.
No. I mean, no. Is that the scene where he sexually assaults her?
Yes. So he basically because she's just, I think she says like, I'm going to leave or something. Like, that's it.
Right.
Again, I feel like that was Tracey standing up for herself. Like I don't think she was a victim. Like I give her more credit than because most people are like, just leave. Well, it's not that easy.
No.
And he kind of puts her on. First of all, there are no sheets on this
bed. That was the first thing that struck me. Not the screaming toddler, not the sounds. It was just like, there is no sheet on that bed.
Tracey, you worked there, girl. You know where the sheets are.
I know.
Come on.
That struck me.
That was straight satin Sears mattress. And that thing is stained. That does something.
Whoever set that room, good job. Because that just elevated the disturbance to off the charts. I was seriously so upset.
Yes. So he basically, it looks like rapes her with their long johns on at this point,
That's right. That's right.
But you get the gist, he's raping
They've never
her.
seen each other naked.
Right.
So why start now?
Yeah, why start now? Exactly. But basically, it just shows his dominance, his control. He's trying to show her you can't escape. And that's what that's about. And he assaults her and then he leaves to go play his poker game.
Right.
And
then she leaves, right?
She does. She's like, that's it.
Right.
I'm done. The kid is freaking out. He just raped me. That's it.
Right.
So she drives back to Torrington, Connecticut.
It's kind of a broken down station wagon situation, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. It's the wood panel on the side. I had that car growing up.
Yeah.
It was a good car.
I don't think it was that, though. I don't think that was her car. Your car was probably not in the condition hers
No,
was
we
in.
got around safely, but And he kind of sees her out the window.
Yeah.
So that was kind of oh no, he knows she's left.
Right.
And she goes back to her friend, and her friend again, open arms. Just got to do the 2 flights of stairs, but come on up.
You can
no front door.
Yeah. With getting splinters when you use the railing. Come on in.
Come on up.
Right.
Doors open because it's always open. We don't lock them.
That's right. Nobody locks those doors.
No
and
one.
Aren't it? It's all screen doors, right?
Yeah.
Do you see a substantial front door?
Yeah. I mean, it's basically anybody's welcome,
It's like they live in a sunroom.
Pretty much. I mean, it's this huge bungalow.
Yeah.
And this beautiful front entrance, which I don't understand.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
So they go up the back and Tracey's, she's living there. And is this when she gets the protective order?
Well, I'm trying to remember when he locates her again, because he comes and that's the first time he kidnaps CJ.
Right.
And he's like running down the block with him. I'm like, does he, like, he doesn't have a car seat. Like, what is happening? Where is he running with him? Like, what is going on?
Right.
And she, of course, freaks out. And that is the first time that they show her calling the police.
Right. Well, he gets a job. Now he can find a job. He gets a job at the diner in Connecticut because, like, she's like, no, I don't want to see you. Like, this is over. Like, clap, clap, clap.
Right.
Good job, Tracey. And he's just like, okay, no, it's not. And I don't even think he really even cares about the marriage. I think at this point, it's just like control.
Right. Like, I'm not losing this.
I'm not losing everything. Yeah. And he gets a job at the diner.
He's slinging hash.
He's having a good time. And the police there, this is kind of when they start and they're just like, they're just like, I can't believe it. I can't believe that this biatch is like keeping your son away from you. Like, you're married.
Right.
That's your wife. That's your child. I guess he just conveniently left out that he beat her up.
Right.
But that's not important.
No. And if you told them, they wouldn't care.
No, not at all. They just want their hash.
Right.
Yeah.
So is that the time he takes him and then he gets picked up and he's literally holding this toddler in the jail cell with him?
Yes.
They're like letting him take the toddler in the jail cell with him. Right.
He's in jail with the baby, which... What is that?
I mean, I would love to know if that actually happened.
Yes.
Because, like, I've never seen that in any kind of movie ever.
No.
And then they're like, just do what he says because he's got your kid.
Yeah.
And she's like, what?
Go calm him down. That's your husband. Right. You calm him down, you'll get your child back. Yeah, he beats me and he kidnapped my son and he followed me out here. But because we're married, it's my job to calm him down so I can get back my son.
Right. So that was kind of the first, I think, full circle showing of like complete incompetence by that particular police department.
Yes.
And then I think we learned that she had called the police 19 times, right?
Yeah, and at some point she does get a protective order, but it's basically useless.
Right.
And I know that, like, when some of the calls she would say, like, I have a protective order. Literally, there were like 4 file folders on the desk. And he's like, oh, it's just too, like, everything's in disarray. I can't find your file.
Get an administrative assistant over there.
Get a freaking accordion folder. Like, it's not hard.
I mean, you could get someone to do your files.
Yeah.
Sir. I mean, just like, honestly, again, just a despicable depiction of like a police department.
Yeah.
And it's not the first one, but it's a very effective showing of like how messed up that system can be. I mean, really, it's almost like there is no system. And it's incredibly frustrating. Isn't he yelling outside of her apartment building at some point? Yes.
Well, he comes around. So she does get like an apartment. She's trying to like make a life.
Right.
Even though she's got this guy, her husband, who I don't even think they're divorced at this point, but she's basically like, get away from me.
Yeah.
And he just will intimidate her and he'll just stand outside in her front yard, yell, whore, Tracey, like you're not going to get away with this.
Right.
And she'll call the police and basically their response is like, I mean, it's your husband.
Right.
Like, he's yelling. What is he doing that's wrong?
Right.
How about intimidation?
Yeah.
Or threats? And she says that. She's like, he's threatening me. He's threatening my life. But that's not good enough. That's not good enough for them to check it out.
And how come there isn't like a neighbor that's like, hey, can you at least shut this guy up?
Right.
Like, are people just cool with like somebody screaming on a street corner?
Yeah. What Connecticut people, what's going on?
I mean, it's just not okay. And I have seen people complain about way less.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Confused.
No, I mean, like my next door app, people are complaining about like your dog barked at 10 p.m. for 2 minutes. Like that's it. And it's like, okay, the police are there.
Yeah. You're like, well, in some places, my dog could have called you a whore and nobody would have done anything.
Threaten your life. So count yourself blessed.
So it's sort of like not a slow build.
No.
Just like instance after instance where the police are just like rolling their eyes. They're like, it's her again. Like, what does she want?
Leave us
And
alone.
she's like, are you guys nuts? Like, what do I have to do?
Right.
And it just keeps escalating. And then I'm wondering if we have to cover any other scenes before we get to the big scene.
Well, there was one more scene before that where she, I think, is going to her lawyer to like finalize the divorce or get things moving. And she knows he's like in the area. She doesn't know where. So she asks the lawyer, she says, could you please walk me to my car? And then could you wait until I get past the first stoplight? Because maybe after that, she was like smooth sailing. Like, I don't know if it was just like a small little town where once the road opens up. And this scene pissed me off because he's like, yeah, sure. And he walks her out. Okay, great. She gets in her car. She has to stop at the stoplight. He leaves to go back to his office, doesn't do what she asks. And lo and behold, who's in the intersection on foot?
That's right.
It's Buck. And how did the lawyer not see him?
Right.
He's not tiny. He's a big man. He basically goes up to the windshield, starts intimidating her. She's like, leave me alone, you know. And he like punches through the windshield.
Yeah, shatters it.
And like, that's not enough.
No, and that's a very public disturbance.
Yes.
Like, that's the middle of the street in town. That's not anything that anyone couldn't see.
Right. And how did he not break his hand or something?
Right.
It's very weird.
Yeah. So that, and again, it's like she's just kind of like used to it and like terrified and like used to like nobody helping her.
Right.
So that is just, I guess, more foreshadowing. And at that point, if the movie didn't open with like the tragedy, I would think at that point with the windshield, like, okay, how much worse can this get?
Right.
But we know
it gets way worse.
It gets way worse.
Yeah.
Which I think was smart because I do think not having that at the very beginning, people would have completely freaked out, probably turned the movie off. Like, it's a very, very jarring abuse scene.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also, I think it was interesting because in that final abuse scene, the way it's set up is so typical. Like, it could be any house, anywhere. It's like quiet. It's sunny. You know, the house is like very calm.
Yes.
CJ's watching Alvin and the Chipmunks. CJ's watching Alvin and the Chipmunks, which really excited me because that was also taking me back to my childhood.
Oh my gosh.
So between that and the deck and the steps, I was like, wow. That could have been my house. Maybe
it was.
Maybe they shot in that house.
I don't know. Yeah, the Alvin Simon.
Amazing. But, you know, sadly, he couldn't have been watching it because that show came out 3 months later. So that was not really happening. But it set the mood. It was like good. It was like things are calm. Like this kid's going to take a nap.
Yes.
Like,
everything's good. CJ's going to take a nap watching a show that doesn't exist yet. It's Inception over there.
But it's a movie.
It's a movie. And her friend's outside, I think with her toddler, like putting like laundry on the line. Yeah. It's just like a normal.
They're like, let's eat potato salad we have in the fridge.
It's a beautiful day in Torrington. And Buckaroo, he's had it. This is when he's like, that's it. Like, it's death or nothing. Like, I'm done.
Oh, he shows the knife at the diner.
Right. To the police.
Right. He shows them the knife.
Yeah. And they're just like, oh, well, that's interesting.
Like one guy's eyes kind of bug out.
Yeah.
And
a
then
little
he's
bit.
like, let me eat this waffle.
Yeah. He's like, not, you know, if you make waffles like this, what does it matter?
Right. And
potato,
it's like,
potato.
That's his business, you know?
So Buckaroo is pissed off.
Yeah.
And he is like, that's it, Tracey, you're going to die today. And he goes over and he's just like, meets her friend in the yard. And he's just like, where's Tracey? And her friend's like, oh, crap. This is bad. Like, you know, you can't really be here. And he's just like, that's my wife. That's my son.
Right.
Get him down here. I need to talk to her now. And so her friend goes back in the house, which I found surprising that Buck didn't follow her.
That's the thing. And that is such a good, like, showing of people in that state of mind. Because it's like he could have ripped off that screen door and went in the house himself. But it's like it's so unpredictable. Like you don't know what they're going to do.
Right. So like, was his intent to kill? I don't know. Maybe he got more fired up as he waited, because he said like something like 15 minutes for her, which could you imagine the friend making small talk with him? Oh my gosh.
No, I can't.
Yeah. So I was just like, he could have killed the friend.
Right.
And
or
then
the
ran
kid
up.
out there, like her friend's kid out there. Like,
right.
Just so unpredictable.
Right.
And that's the most terrifying thing, I think.
Yeah. So he's waiting and her friend goes upstairs and she's like, Tracey, Buck's here. You need to call the police.
Right.
And she's like, okay, let me just go check on CJ.
Right.
Let me go call the police. She tells the police and they're just like, okay.
Right.
Sure. And then she goes, finally, he's like calling her out. He's like, I've been waiting 15 minutes. You're a whore. Get down here. Which, I mean, that's such a sweet thing to say. But anyways, so Tracey finally comes down the stairs and it's just like, okay, what? Like, you can't be here.
Right.
And then I'm not really sure what is said. Does he just kind of attack her?
Well, I think he is like yelling at her and simultaneously we see the probably most useless depicted cop get the call.
Because he's like, you called the cops?
Right. But the cop that gets the call is like, what's going on? Like, I'm retiring tomorrow. Yeah. I have no brain. And goes to the police department to pee. First. And then they're like, dude, there's a restraining order. Now they care.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh. So
whoopsie.
He heads over. And then he parks across the street, gets out of the car.
With no gun or anything.
Looks around.
Just kind of is like, hey, what's going on?
Right. And then Buck sees him and loses it.
Right.
And it's like, I've never seen a cop approach that way. Ever.
He looked terrified.
He looked terrified. He looked like a cop. Like, what was the Mr. Rogers thing where they would like go on the little train and there were all the like little puppets?
Yeah.
He looked like a cop from there. Like, he is not used to this.
No.
He's used to talking to Mrs. Kitten or whoever is in Mr. Rogers' land.
Yeah, no, he is like, what now?
Right.
I got to do what?
Right. So Buck sees that and flips, and that's when he pulls the knife.
Yes.
And then the friend is like, obviously freaking out.
Yes.
And then Buck starts chasing Tracey. And I think by now some neighbors have like come out.
Yes. It's a small congregation of people who, like, I mean, you can't blame people for not like jumping in and trying to like apprehend him. Because if I saw a freaking cop who has a gun and could have just been like, hands up, throw down your knife, like, or even just shot him in the leg, something.
Right.
I wouldn't intervene. I wouldn't if I was a neighbor. I'd be like, the cop is here. Like, let's go.
Right. And I'm also wondering, like, when, I mean, this is a side note, but I'm wondering when cops started going out, like, in twos. Because that cop was, like, alone.
Yeah.
And that's odd. Maybe that's how that was back then. But, like, with a, like, violent situation.
I don't even think they thought about it.
I'm sure they didn't there.
Later, another cop shows up because he's the one that kind of, like, sustains her bleeding, like tries to stop it. So I don't even think it was a thought in their head that this is so serious.
Right. Well, because because they, Tracy's been making it up the whole time.
Right.
So,
she's crazy.
Right.
So he's slashing her.
Yeah. He chases her and starts like slashing her.
Like, I think it was her throat.
Yeah. Her throat, like she's face down. Yeah. So he's like going at her back. He's like crying. And then the friend's like screaming, and then the cop's still like, what's going on? Oh. Right. And I mean, honestly, like these days, like, wouldn't he just have shot him in the back, like as he's stabbing her?
Right. Because he could come back and go after him too. Like, it's a safety for everybody involved. That's what I mean. Like, why wouldn't you give him a warning and then shoot him in the leg or shoot? I mean, he's killing someone.
Right.
Where's the self-defense? Where's any sort of defense?
So then it's like he gets the knife. The cop,
I don't know how.
I don't know how either.
He's
but
so like he's the worst. Like he's so,
literally he should not have any job. Like, and that is the worst job by far.
Yeah.
Like,
just so inept.
I mean, so like I'm so angry every time I watch
Yes.
the scene. It's
Yes.
like your skin is like on fire watching
Yeah.
it. So he gets the knife. He like puts the knife in the trunk.
Yeah.
And while he's
Good job.
doing that, I can't remember who gets CJ.
Well,
Does
the
he
friend,
go in the house and get CJ, or is
he does. I
Yeah.
believe he does. And then the friend's like, oh my gosh. But he starts, no, before he does that, he starts stomping on her head.
right?
So this is what is just so awful. I mean, yes, oh my gosh, the slashing is terrible. But I think what really, really disturbed me was he literally starts stomping her head like she is, like it's just with boots on. I mean,
Yes.
I can't even imagine in the head what that
Horrendous.
feels like.
And one of the shots is like her head moving, like
Yes.
after he kicks it.
Oh
It's
my
very realistic.
It's so like when you're watching it, I was holding my breath.
Yeah,
I'm looking away. You feel your heart racing.
right.
It's so intense, and you like it's just so well done. It's so believable.
Right. And he's not going to stop. And
Oh,
like the
no.
entire neighborhood, like
Is
he's
watching.
holding them hostage. Like they're like,
Yeah.
he's like taken over the neighborhood.
Yes, they're just stunned.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you're just in shock
Mhm.
watching this. I don't know. But he is just mercilessly stomping on her head, trying to kill her. He
Right.
wants her dead. He's saying he wants her dead.
Right.
And then I think that's when he goes up and grabs the child.
Right.
And the friend is ballistic.
Right.
Like, give me CJ. Give me
Right.
CJ. You can't have CJ.
Yeah.
And another cop shows up.
Right.
They call an ambulance, which I believe later in the movie during the court scene, it took 15 minutes for the first cop to arrive
Yes.
since her call, which 15 minutes with your predator
Yes. In a small town.
in a small town. Right, which nothing really going on.
There's
and
like
then
2 streets to drive down.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And then 27 minutes, I believe it was, for the ambulance to arrive.
Right.
So she sustained these injuries and waiting
Yeah.
for 15, 17-ish minutes
Yeah.
before even someone's there. So the other cop finally is like, oh no, this is serious.
Yup.
So he like goes to like, clot her blood, like, turret her, whatever it is it's called, tourniquet her. I don't know. Just trying to save her life at this point, which, okay, good job. And Tracy's still like conscious.
Right. Yeah.
Which, oh my gosh.
She's like living through it.
She is living through it.
Yeah.
And she just is like the whole time, just pure mom. Where's CJ?
Right.
All she cares about is the baby. Get the
Right.
baby. Get the baby. And
Right.
that would totally be a mom.
Absolutely. And of course, the baby's screaming because
Oh.
he's always screaming.
That kid.
I mean,
The blood. I was like, he's seeing this. He doesn't, at that age, this actor does not know the difference.
no.
And there is blood everywhere.
Yeah.
And they are screaming. The women are screaming. Buck is screaming.
Yeah.
And the kid is freaked out.
He is, for sure
props to that.
traumatized.
We should look up who that child actor is
Yeah.
and see like if they did anything else or if they just like called it after
Retired.
that.
Retired at like 28 months old.
They collected their $200 check and they were like, I'm done.
Yeah. I mean, that was besides like witnessing the story, which was fabricated, like
Yeah.
seeing that actual child like witness that
Oh my
scene was
gosh.
very disturbing.
Very disturbing.
Um,
I couldn't get past that.
So like somehow, I don't even remember, but somehow they like get Buck in the car, the police car.
Yeah, but he like keeps I think that the EMTs are there and he's still trying to beat her.
Yeah. And
Like,
someone's like, get a stretcher. Because
Yeah,
like
get
they
a
don't know what
stretch-
stretchers
they don't-
are.
Yeah, they don't know how to do anything at this
Right.
point. Like
Right.
it's just awful.
Right.
And finally, Buck is apprehended. CJ is given back to her friend,
Right.
and Tracy's on her way to the hospital.
Yeah.
And the whole time, all she cares about is her son.
Right.
She's just asking, is he okay?
Right. And like, when they sort of, because her sister does come to see her then.
After, her probably surgeries and things like that, her sister is at the hospital.
And when they reveal Tracy to herself in the mirror,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not cute, but I was expecting way worse in
Mhm.
terms of like the scarring.
Yeah.
Like I was expecting her to be like completely unrecognizable.
Right.
And she could have been.
She could have been. But if you look at Tracey Thurman today, she definitely looks like in the face, like completely normal.
Yeah.
Like you would not think that she sustained those injuries, which is kind of amazing.
So it looks like from age 1 to age 5, there's 5 different actors that played CJ. So there's 2 of them that played him when he was 2 years old.
Oh, so both were traumatized.
And they were twins.
Yeah. So double duty for the therapy later in life.
Yeah. And it looks like one of the twins was in like a few other movies.
He must have been the good crier.
And the other one doesn't have a photo. So we don't know what happened.
He was the bad twin.
He's the one that had to do that scene. But what was also shocking to me is that when Tracey, like, basically is back with CJ at home, like, he's huge. I mean, it's basically been like...
Oh, yeah. He's like 7 years old.
Of recovery.
Yeah. Well... So when she's in the hospital after like the initial beating, her sister comes. I have to note this scene because this really drove me crazy.
Yeah.
So her sister's there and her sister is like kind of a biatch.
Yeah.
Like she's
like
just
the whole time.
The whole time. Like there's no empathy. There's no like compassion really. No. It's just like, get it together, Trace. Like, come on.
Right.
And like, because there's one point where Tracey's like, I'm so scared, you know, and she's frustrated and she's angry and she's probably in so much pain. And her sister's like, scared of what? And it's like, scared of what? Oh my gosh. Like a lot of things, sis.
Right.
Like, good grief.
Yeah.
But
that was bad.
Yeah. So the one thing she brings up, and I just really, I wrote this in my notes, like, it's really just men writing women because, okay, this is a valid question.
Yeah.
But she goes, I had to rewind it twice to really be like, did she just say that? She goes, will I be able to have sex again?
Right.
And I was like, okay, like legitimate question. And you have every right to have sex again. Like, I would not want that taken away from me. But, would that be the first question you would bring? Like, wouldn't you be like, will I be a mom again? Will I be able to work? Like, am I going to be able to like take a shower? Like, that's the question. There's no other question she asked. Right. It's just that. And I was like, that is men writing women.
Well, I originally thought that too, because I was like, what? And why? And like, what? But I actually was looking and, a woman wrote this film.
Oh.
And she also wrote Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman.
Oh, nice.
So that tells me that might have been something Tracey asked. Because if you think about it, all of her life was built around this man who she thought desired her and like wanted her. And she was probably like terrified that she wouldn't be able to be with another man again. And it's probably not what I would say or you would say or most people we know would say.
Yeah.
But she was probably so like shattered mentally.
Yeah. I just find it weird.
It was
so her sustained injuries, she's kind of like half paralyzed.
Yeah.
We should put that out there that she's like half paralyzed. So she does have some mobility, but like her arm, especially, and like one of her hands and things like that, like she has some. So, I mean, maybe one side of her, she couldn't feel things. Like maybe that's the point they were trying to make. But I just was like, it just seems unrealistic to me. And maybe that would be one of my questions, but it certainly wouldn't be my first. Like, I don't think I would be like, I'm just recovering. I really want to have sex.
You probably wouldn't. Yeah, you probably wouldn't want to be getting it on anytime soon. I mean,
I think I'd write off men at that point.
Yeah.
Like, I'd be like, we're done here. I'm getting dogs. Like, it's over.
Yeah. Well, and I think, am I confusing it? Or was it like the side that could be used couldn't feel and vice versa?
I believe you're right.
So like she could use her right hand but couldn't feel anything.
Oh,
she couldn't use her left hand but could, like that kind of thing. So I don't even know what you do. Like, I don't even know what you do with that. Can we talk about when she's living with CJ again? And it's like such a realistic moment. Like when he's like, can you peel me this apple? And I was like,
oh,
I don't like peeling, cutting fruit.
Yeah. Especially apples.
I don't cut, like, you can ask my daughter. I have not cut watermelon for her one time. I'm like, wait till your dad gets home. So when he asked her that, I was like, wow, that was really realistic to me.
Yeah.
Because like this woman can't use her hand.
Yeah, he's like no skin.
And the kid needs a snack.
Yeah.
Kids don't want the skin or the crust or the whatever.
Yeah.
And she's like,
you know, mommy can't do this.
Yeah.
It's really hard. And he just kind of is just like, yeah, do it.
He's like, can I get something back from the hardship I've endured? Like, can you please just peel this apple for me?
See, I think because they make CJ so old in this scene where he's like 6 or 7, I feel like that's why it made me mad. Because I'm like, you're at an age where you could understand that your mom is recovering. Like, but then it's also like, he probably is angry because this is his mom who's probably done things the same way his whole life.
Right.
And now she's finally back home.
Right.
And it's just like, I just want my apple. Like, I just want something to be the same. And his mom literally can't. So it's like, I do feel for this kid and I kind of can see why he asked her to do that and why he would be quote unquote selfish. It's not really selfish. It's just more like, I just want my mom to do the things she did.
Yeah, it's a great scene because it's like a kid being a kid.
Right.
Like your kid doesn't care if you have the flu.
No,
your kid doesn't care.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Your kid's like, do this for me.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And that was like really realistic.
That was very realistic.
It hit me because I hate
still
cutting
pissed
fruit.
me off. So.
Yeah.
Because I was like, you know what? You can eat the skin. That's where the fiber is.
That's
like, get over it.
You're like, leave this woman alone.
Yeah.
Like this woman has kept you in chicken strips your whole life. Like it's going to be okay.
You're going to be fine. You didn't choke then. You won't choke now. Eat some skin.
Right.
Gosh.
So then I do like the actor that plays her attorney.
Oh my gosh. The guy with the pipe. Dr. Doolittle.
Well, the guy that's like, look, like we need to do something about this.
Oh, yeah. Well, he visits her at the hospital before she's released. And he's just like, Tracey, we need to do something about this. Right. And she's thinking it's against Buck. But he's like, no, like it's against the police and the city of Torrington. Like they've failed you.
Right.
And I think like she's kind of like, what?
Yeah.
You know, like somebody actually sees what I see.
Right.
It's a miracle.
Yeah. And the fact that it's like coming from a man.
Yeah.
You know, when all of these men in power have been like, you're wrong.
Yeah.
And like, you're overreacting.
Right.
And,
there's nothing to worry about.
So this is like an educated person telling her like, no, this is like legit.
Yeah. And you know what I just realized? Her sister now is in the scene with the money, like all the court stuff. What's that about?
Yeah, that's interesting.
I never thought about that.
Yeah. No, I didn't either.
You
like
didn't,
she just
like,
shows
come
up to the
around.
trial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you didn't come around when, like, I was telling you all this stuff is going on with Buck.
Right.
Or I'm like, where are you in my nephew's life?
Right.
She's not around.
She should be peeling apples.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. That is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, really, you know, with this court case, there were some times where it was like, well, you know, we just did what protocol was. And they're like, well, what's protocol? And they're like, we don't know. That's somebody else's job.
Right.
And,
point the finger at somebody else.
Right.
Just
and so
don't blame me.
I think that that's pretty realistic and probably still going on in a lot of areas.
Oh, yeah. I think there's so much going on in so many ways with that. And basically, like, I know he says a line, like later we can get into it with the court scene, but basically he was just like, what did they say? Something about bureaucracy.
Yeah.
It was like, that's not law enforcement, that's bureaucracy.
Right.
So it's like, amen to that. Like, that's the truth. You can sit there and say like, well, this person says to do this and I thought I was supposed to do this. But it's like, this is someone's life.
Right.
Like, there should be it's black and white.
Right.
When it comes to saving someone's life in my book.
There's plenty of jobs where it's like, you don't have to care about somebody.
Right.
You know, you could just like do your job and like leave. But like teachers, cops, you know, nurses, like, you know, they can be heroes. And, you know, the really good ones like happen to care about the people that they treat. And so I think it was something where it's easy to look at that kind of movie and be like, well, this is really old. But like, I think those themes are very like prevalent still.
Yes.
And it's very upsetting to think that like in many of these cases, like whether it's a man or a woman in terms of like dealing with abuse, like they really are on their own. And that is one of the scariest thoughts you could have.
Yeah. So basically, they just kind of were like, one of the worst things I heard was, well, he didn't hurt you. Like, during these calls. Like, he just yelled at you. That's not doing anything. But yes, it is. It's intimidation.
Yeah.
The police's defense was just completely ridiculous. And basically one of them, they were like, why didn't you draw a gun when Buck was like doing all these things?
Yeah.
And he's like, I didn't draw my gun because he didn't show excessive force. I mean, he's slashing her.
Right.
He's stomping on her head.
Right.
What is excessive to you, sir?
That's right.
Like, I define that for me, because that's just, that's the time you draw your gun. Like,
right. Like, what would be if not that?
I don't know.
And like, something that I thought was really disturbing is like, I think she won this case because it was like he stomped on her because the cop was putting the knife in the trunk. And if the cop had done that and he didn't stomp on her, she wouldn't have been paralyzed.
Right.
And it's like, what about her being stabbed a million times and like the lifelong trauma that she's going to have and the lifelong trauma her son's going to have?
Right.
Like, it's like if they didn't prove gross negligence, she wouldn't have won. And it's like,
not at all.
What is that?
Well, it kind of like brings up the fact, like I was talking with my mom about this point, and not that they're the same, but after I had my daughter, as you know, I had a really bad doctor, and she was trying to rush me along, and she left a piece of placenta in me that I didn't know, and I had it for 6 weeks, which is like unheard of. Like I should have been septic. In fact, I was probably very close. Right. And finally, when I was like, I was just trying. I would call them every day and be like, I don't feel right, and they're just like, oh, it's just motherhood. And if you're really that sick, go to the ER. But I just took them for their word. I was like, if it's not anything big, I'm not going to worry about it. Right. And finally, when I did, I found out the problem. And so my mom, she sought out a lawyer. And the lawyer basically, who's in women's rights, was like, unless she died or can prove that she cannot have children, I don't have a case. What about those 6 weeks where I was bleeding constantly, had fevers, couldn't take care of my child, didn't know why I felt so sick? The psychological trauma of it, like it messed up my hormones. It messed up so many things for me, but that doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't. And that's the thing I never realized. Like, I always thought like, oh, it's hard to like win a case. It's hard to get a case. It's hard to even, I
think as a woman is.
Right. It's hard to even try to like, defend yourself and like make things right for yourself. And it's really, I mean, it's like there's no system. It's just not even broken. It's just not there.
I think that Tracey's, the only way outside of getting like paralyzed is she probably would have had to die by the knife or something like that for her family to get anything. And it probably wouldn't have been much.
No.
So the city wasn't found guilty.
Right.
Because she sued both.
Right.
The city was not found guilty, which I don't know how that went, but okay, fine. The police were, and that's how she got her money.
Right.
So.
And we don't really see anything beyond that.
No, because basically, I mean, at that point, it's 1989. This happened in 1983. The trial was, in 1984, something like that. So, I mean, it's not many years have passed. So, CJ is still quite small.
Right.
And basically, what also came out of this is it changed. They came up with the Tracey Thurman law in Torrington, Connecticut. So not for the entire United States, just in Torrington, Connecticut, that basically like domestic violence is going to be treated as any other violent crime. So if you got stabbed by someone, what kills me is that if you went to a grocery store and a stranger came up to you and stabbed you prior to this law, it would hold more weight in court than your husband stabbing you.
Right.
What is that?
And again, it's also like, people who believe that like a husband can't rape a wife or a wife can't, sexually assault a husband. And it's the idea of property. And it's the idea that like, in body and mind, like this man owns this woman. And he should be able to do what he pleases.
It's seen as it's not really seen as crime or not that bad of a crime as a stranger because you're married, like, and it's just like, he's killing me.
Right. I mean, and I think, too, that it's the kind of attitude where it's like, well, one bad apple ruins the whole bunch because it's like they think that, people lie or if they get in a fight, they make something up, But I just think that like for somebody to put themselves out there, go forward, tell this tale and like be judged, it's very painful.
Yeah.
It's not like, haha, gotcha. In most cases, I think
Right.
it's like a very traumatic thing.
Yes.
So I think that, you know, this whole idea of even believing somebody that comes forward that says something terrible happened to them is almost not even enough.
Right.
Because it doesn't really do anything for that person. It
Right.
almost makes it where, you know, then their battle begins.
Well, okay, so Buck goes to court, obviously, and they say, well, we're going to give you 20 years, but only 14 of them you'll serve behind bars.
Right.
The other 6, you can be outside and, you know, just stay away from Tracey.
Right.
And, you know, like you're basically just like, what do they call it?
On probation.
On probation, yeah.
Right. Because telling him to stay away worked before.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. So, I mean, just pathetic.
Yeah.
And you can see it in Tracey's face that she's like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm maimed. I'm paralyzed.
That's right.
He's tormented me for years. And he only has to serve 14 years. I mean, that's not very long at all.
No, I mean, because what is he, like 25? I mean,
Right.
like, he's going to get out
A
for his
long
40th birthday.
Yeah, like big freaking deal.
That's right. Yeah,
And
that was horrendous.
I just wonder almost if that would be the same, because sometimes you look at even like murder charges, some get life, some get like 25 years. And if you
Right.
think about it, it's like someone's life is only worth 25 years.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So you're saying his sentence was suspended after 14 years, right?
Yes. So he got like, they said, okay, you get 20 years, but you only have to serve in jail 14 of them.
Right.
You'll be on probation for 6 of them.
Okay.
And that's what he did.
Yeah.
Which then 6 years, Tracey probably had to, maybe for the rest of her life, but especially those 6 years, I bet, look over her shoulder
Oh, yeah.
all the time.
She's getting ADT
Yeah.
installed.
Like, oh my gosh, yeah, ADT is on the phone. Like, I would be like, I mean, what do you do?
I mean, it's like, I would probably have to like move to a different country.
Because I actually read an article where he was interviewed and he said, I'm going to finish the job when I'm out of here.
Yeah.
That's in a newspaper article.
Right.
Because he was interviewed and he said, I'm going to finish the job. And when he was out, he got a girlfriend who he also, there was domestic violence.
Right.
And got time like with probation, I believe. And
Yeah.
basically he broke it by visiting her.
Right.
So it's like, this guy is a repeat offender.
He's a repeat offender. And also, like, we have to remember, too, there wasn't the information then that there is now. Like, there wasn't social media.
Right.
You could really start a brand new life.
Yeah.
And nobody would
Know
know
where you are.
what you did.
Right.
Like, that's really dangerous for everybody involved.
Yeah.
So where's Buck now?
Mm.
I don't know if I have the date, but it's like he's in Massachusetts, right?
Yeah.
And they recently had some kind of interview with him with
Yes.
like his new neighborhood.
Yes,
And like,
he's
what
married.
did he say?
He was like, I just wish you'd stop asking me about this.
Right.
Like, just let it go.
Right. Like, he's like, get over yourselves.
Get over it. Like, I didn't kill her.
Right.
She's fine.
Right.
Like, just, it's not a biggie.
Right.
Move on. Oh my gosh. And I think even one of his neighbors was like, you know, I was a victim of domestic violence and I don't think this guy could ever do that. And it's like, you know, you really do hope that maybe this time he is reformed. Like, I'm not saying people can never change.
Sure.
But like, I don't think you ever have the right to say, leave me alone about this.
I agree.
When you do something like that.
You know, I just want, you know, to shout out that, like, I know we touched on it, but he does say in the movie, like, I was abused. Like, my mom stabbed me. Like, this happened to me. That happened to me. And he's also surrounded by like really toxic masculinity.
Yes.
Like Tracey brings him lunch to the work site, which, you know, I think we're going to make a thing because there's a lot of scenes in these movies where wives are bringing lunches to work sites.
Yes. And
a thing of a past.
Yeah. And 2 more points. If they bring the lunch in like a full, like, grocery store bag. Like it's not like a normal lunch paper bag.
No.
Like it's a paper bag that they rolled. You know what I'm saying? Like a few times over.
Oh yeah.
It's like, who brings lunch in that?
I don't know. And then 3 points if it's like a thermos with the cup with the handle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
But anyway, she brings him his lunch. They're like dating and everyone's like, ugh, like making fun of him.
Yeah.
Like,
Get your lunch back.
like, oh, a woman's being nice to you. We're going to make fun of you. So it's like, again, I mean, I will never excuse what he's done. But when he does say, like, look, I was abused, like, he actually talks about his feelings a few times.
He does.
And everyone's like, whatever, like, it's probably fine. And it's like, it's not fine. Like, he terrorized this woman and his son. And that stuff doesn't go away. And so his actions will not be excused. But he also suffered abuse.
He did.
And in the 80s, like, I don't really think anybody cared if men did at all.
Yeah. No.
And I thought that was interesting that they even put that in there.
Yeah.
Because it really is a throwaway afterthought.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Well, I don't think normal people just like become like that. Like, I definitely think you have to have some sort of trauma. I mean, maybe there's a few that like are just born psychotic, but that's like a mental thing. Like, that's a mental health thing.
It's
like,
definitely a mental health
yeah.
thing.
So for him, he definitely had mental health issues, but like it probably stemmed from a terrible environment. So you feel bad for him in some ways because it's like, you know, are you a product of your environment? Are you a product of, you know, how you're born? Like, I don't know. But yeah, it's just, you have to know right from wrong.
You have to know right from wrong. And also the difference is like, he doesn't have remorse. Like,
No.
So it's like, okay, well,
yes,
that takes care of that.
That is such a great point because
You
I
know.
thought that too. I was like, if he said in an interview, like, I am so sorry. Like, I don't know why I did that. Like,
I'm a changed man.
I'm a changed man. Like, I just wish her the best. Like, I'm so sorry for what I've done.
Right.
It's the big deal.
So then in terms of like CJ, the latest we have, I think, is 2002. Apparently, he had some kind of failed drug test and prompted the probation department to drop by his house. And they found a gun and cocaine and a syringe. He went to jail. Tracey has like supported him through all of his like trials, of course. And then he stole like $20,000 from an ex-girlfriend's relative. He also had some domestic violence charges against him.
Oh, it's so sad.
And then when he was 23, he was going to serve 6.5 years for violating his probation and assaulting a local woman. So
I bet it's 6 years.
I mean, and it's like
Like full circle.
Right. We don't know where he is.
Yeah. That's sad though.
But again, and it's like somebody could look at that and be like, whatever, he's like useless, like what a loser, like get rid of him. And it's like, well, no, I mean, look what this like child went through.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like this stuff doesn't normally just pop up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And so, you know, luckily he has Tracey's support. But it's very sad.
Yeah. And Tracey has gone on to just be such an advocate for domestic violence. And I think she just recently received an award.
Yes, it was the Connecticut Coalition Against Domestic Violence presented her with the Coalition Crusader Award. And she still lives in Torrington, which
It's amazing.
is amazing.
Yeah.
Because she really, you know, probably had to go through a ton of like trauma work to even live there still.
Well, yeah. I mean, you probably like, I wonder if like, I'm sure the police were real sweet to her after that. I mean, probably there's a lot of hard feelings, but it just kind of speaks to her, you know, it attests to her strength and just the fact that, you know, she's, I think she said in an interview, like, I will help any domestic violence person. Like, they can ask me anything, I will be there. Like, she's just really an advocate and she used this horrible situation.
Absolutely. And also, I think it's like so important when people do need resources that like there's no judgment.
Yeah.
And if you've been through it,
oh my gosh,
you know, there's not going to be judgment.
No.
And so it sounds like she's made the most, you know, of her life.
Yes.
And then just like a few other things. And this is all from a publication called Connecticut by the Numbers. And again, we don't know how this affects the rest of the country. But apparently there has been some effort and there has been some organizing to kind of help understand domestic violence a little bit more throughout the state. After 86, when domestic violence arose, the police were obligated to arrest both parties when each would point a finger at the other.
Oh, wow.
And it said, this had the effect of repunishing the abused person and dissuading her or him from ever calling the police again.
Oh.
They had the highest dual arrest rate in the country.
Oh, my gosh.
So when someone's like, why didn't they call the police? It's like, that's why.
I want to go to jail. I got my kids.
Right. And then in 2018, the state passed a dominant aggressor law. And that requires police to figure out who the bad guy is and only arrest the bad guy.
In 2018?
Yeah.
It took that many years for them to be like, you know what, this isn't working.
Right. And then the sergeant is using terminology like bad guy. So I don't really know how effective that is.
Wow.
Connecticut court also makes abusers go to anger management.
Okay.
But domestic violence is less about anger and more about the need to exert power and control.
Right.
So a lot of experts are saying, like, that's not going to do anything.
Yeah.
And then the latest is that they're still waiting for some kind of reauthorization from 2018 because a lot of senators object a provision barring those convicted of dating violence, including stalking and possessing firearms. So the whole gun issue is wrapped into it too.
6 years later, they can't figure it out.
It says, as the date for reauthorization came and went, actress Alyssa Milano, shout out to some other made-for-TV movies.
Yeah.
She said, what kind of country allows its Violence Against Women Act to expire?
Amen.
That's a good point. It seems like it should be an automatic renewal. So
yeah, that's kind of a no-brainer.
Right. So basically, in a nutshell, there's a point person, Michael O'Sullivan, and he is at the New Canaan Police Department. He said intimate partner violence cases dropped from a high of 96 to 2005 to 22 in 2018, the latest year for which there are stats. And he said there's a continuous education campaign for umpteen years, noting that some groups are working with the Domestic Violence Crisis Center.
I don't believe in those numbers. I think so many people just didn't call because they were scared to go to jail.
Because they watched this movie too. And they're like, oh, how different could it really be now? So
yeah. And I mean, like, it's just, if my husband then looks at me and goes, no, she pushed me. Now we're both in jail. Where are our kids going?
Exactly.
Like, that is just, those are not real numbers.
I mean, and honestly, it sounds like as a whole, I guess there's like some effort being made, but it doesn't really sound like it's happening fast enough.
No.
And it doesn't destigmatize any of what, a violent survivor has to go through.
Right. Not much. I mean, you can sit there and be like, well, these laws are passed. I mean, everything, the Tracey Thurman law is awesome. Like, that was huge.
Yeah.
I don't know how that wasn't in existence before, but whatever. But past that, what really is changing? Like, that's baffling.
Yeah. I mean, so if anybody else has any other information about Tracey or this case or the town, we would love to hear from you. Yeah. And what we'll probably do is we'll end up linking our email. And you guys can reach out to us with any thoughts or comments or questions. And we would also love to hear any recommendations or suggestions of movies that you would love to have us talk about.
Yes. And not like the new Lifetime movies. Like, we kind of want something where it actually may have happened.
Yes, we would like things that have happened because what we would like to focus on is what came out of those stories.
Yes.
So any of those recommendations are more than welcome.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I love a haunted mansion with the crazy old man stalking me, which I did watch a Lifetime movie like that the other day.
Right.
But probably not true.
Right. Or Christmas. Any Christmas movie, right? You love it. It might or might not be true.
Yeah. May or may not be true.
Right. But we appreciate you all, and we love you, and we look forward to talking to you again.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.